respected. Listen closely, because what you are about to hear is not about talent, luck, or intelligence. It is about a hidden pattern that quietly decides who rises and who stays stuck, who builds a life of freedom, and who lives with regret. Tonight, in the next few minutes, you may realize why only 2% of people truly succeed and why 98% never do.
Let me take you back for a moment. Imagine a young man sitting in a small apartment, broke, frustrated, staring at unpaid bills scattered across the table.
He wants more from life. He dreams of success, freedom, happiness. But every morning he wakes up, something invisible pulls him back into the same habits, the same fears, the same doubts. That man was me. And what changed my life was not working harder, not getting lucky, and not waiting for the right time. What changed everything was understanding how success really works at the level of the brain, the habits, and the identity. You see, most people believe success is about effort alone. They believe if they just try harder, push more, sacrifice more, eventually life will reward them. But that belief is exactly why 98% stay where they are, because effort without alignment is exhausting. Action without clarity leads to burnout, and desire without the right inner programming leads to self-sabotage. The truth is this: the 2% don't think like everyone else. They don't react like everyone else. And most importantly, they don't live from the same internal operating system. From the moment we are born, our brains are being programmed. By parents who did their best but passed on their fears. By schools that taught obedience instead of creativity. By society that rewarded safety over growth. And by experiences that silently told us what we are capable of and what we are not. By the time most people reach adulthood, their subconscious mind is running the show. And the subconscious does not care about your dreams. It cares about familiarity. This is where the great divide begins. The 98% live on autopilot. They wake up, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, take the same actions, and get the same results. Even when they say they want more, their internal wiring pulls them back to what feels safe. Not what is right, not what is possible, just what is familiar. The 2% learn something most people never do. They learn that success is not something you chase on the outside. It is something you build on the inside first. I remember the moment this truth hit me. I was attending a seminar, sitting in the back, skeptical but desperate for answers. And the speaker said something that stopped me cold. He said, "You will never outperform your self-image." Not your goals, not your dreams, your self-image. The way you see yourself when no one is watching, the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. That single sentence explained my entire life up to that point. I wasn't failing because I lacked ability. I was failing because my identity was wired for struggle, not success. My mind was trained to expect problems, not opportunities. And every time I got close to a breakthrough, my subconscious would pull me back to what it believed was normal. This is why most people quit. Not because they are weak, but because their brain is trying to protect them. Protection feels like fear. Protection feels like procrastination. Protection feels like excuses that sound logical. I'll start tomorrow. I need more information. It's not the right time. But beneath those excuses is a nervous system that has not been trained for growth. The 2% understand this game. They understand that the moment you set a new goal, your brain will fight you. It will bring up old memories, old failures, old doubts, not to punish you, but to keep you safe. And instead of believing those thoughts, the 2% learn to observe them, question them, and rewire them. This is where emotional mastery comes in. Most people are controlled by their emotions. Fear tells them when to stop. Comfort tells them when to rest. Doubt tells them when to quit. But the 2% learn to feel fear and move forward anyway. They learn to feel discomfort and see it as a signal of growth. They learn that emotions are feedback, not commands. Think about it. Every meaningful change in your life happened outside your comfort zone. Every breakthrough came after uncertainty. Yet the 98% spend their entire lives trying to feel comfortable first, confident first, ready first. And that moment never comes. The 2% move first. Confidence follows action, not the other way around. Another invisible difference is focus. The average person's mind is scattered, worrying about the past, anxious about the future, distracted by noise. The 2% train their focus like a muscle. They decide what matters. They give their energy to a few meaningful goals instead of 1,000 distractions. And over time, that focused attention reshapes their brain, their habits, and their results. I want you to hear this clearly. Success is not reserved for the chosen few. It is reserved for the trained few. trained to think differently, trained to manage emotions, trained to act in alignment with a future identity instead of a past story. Right now, as you listen to this, a quiet question may be forming inside you. Which group am I in? And more importantly, can I change? The answer is yes, but only if you are willing to do what most people are not. Only if you are willing to look inward instead of blaming outward. Only if you are willing to become aware of the patterns that have been running your life, because awareness is the doorway. Once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. Once you interrupt it, you can replace it. And once you replace it consistently, your life begins to change in ways that feel almost unbelievable. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we are going to go deeper into the exact mental habits that separate the 2% from the 98% and how you can start installing them into your own life starting today. If you could look inside the mind of the 2%, you wouldn't find less fear. You wouldn't find fewer problems. What you would find is something far more powerful. You would find conscious control over attention, energy, and meaning. Most people don't realize this, but your life is shaped less by what happens to you and more by what you consistently focus on. The 98% wake up already overwhelmed. Their attention is hijacked by news, social media, other people's opinions, and old worries looping in their mind. Their brain is constantly reacting, and when you live in reaction mode, you give your power away. The 2% live differently. They understand that where attention goes, energy flows, and where energy flows, results grow. So they guard their attention fiercely, not in a selfish way, but in a purposeful way. They decide what thoughts deserve their energy and which ones don't. They don't believe every thought that crosses their mind. They question it. They reshape it. I remember working with a client who was incredibly smart, talented, and hardworking, yet stuck financially for years. Every time we talked about growth, his mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. What if it fails? What if I lose everything? What if people judge me? And then one day I asked him a simple question. What if it works? He went silent. Not because he didn't want success, but because his brain had never practiced that thought. This is one of the biggest differences. The 98% rehearse failure in their minds. The 2% rehearse success. Not as wishful thinking, but as mental training. The brain cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you repeatedly imagine success, confidence, and progress, your brain begins to wire those states as familiar, and what is familiar feels safe. This is why visualization, when done correctly, is so powerful. It is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about teaching your nervous system what your future self feels like, how they walk, how they speak, how they respond under pressure. Over time, your behavior naturally starts to align with that identity. The 98% wait for motivation. They wait to feel inspired. They wait for the mood to be right. The 2% understand that motivation is unreliable. Discipline and identity are far more powerful. They ask a different question. What would the future version of me do right now? And then they do that even when it's uncomfortable. Another critical difference is how they handle failure. Most people see failure as proof that something is wrong with them. That interpretation creates shame, fear, and avoidance. The 2% see failure as feedback, data, information, not a verdict, but a lesson. This mindset alone keeps them moving forward while others stop. Think about how many dreams die quietly because someone failed once and decided it meant something about who they are. Not good enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough. The tragedy is not failure. The tragedy is the meaning we attach to it. The 2% take responsibility at a level most people avoid. Not blame, responsibility. They understand that if they created their current results through past habits and thinking, they can create new results through new habits and thinking. This realization is both terrifying and empowering. Terrifying because there is no one else to blame. Empowering because there is no one else to wait for. They also understand the power of small, consistent actions. The 98% overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They start strong, burn out, and quit. The 2% play the long game. They show up when no one is watching. They improve by 1% at a time. And over time, those small wins compound into massive results. This is not glamorous. It doesn't look impressive in the beginning, but it is unstoppable. There is also a deep emotional truth here that most people never face. Success requires letting go of who you used to be, and that can feel like loss. You may outgrow certain relationships, certain environments, certain versions of yourself that once felt comfortable. The 98% cling to familiarity. The 2% choose growth even when it feels lonely. Right now, you may feel something stirring inside you, a mix of excitement and discomfort. That's a good sign. It means you are becoming aware, and awareness is the moment the pattern starts to break. In the next part, we're going to talk about the internal barriers that silently keep people stuck, the fears no one talks about, and how the 2% reprogram their subconscious mind to work for them instead of against them. There is an invisible wall that separates intention from transformation, and most people never cross it because they never see it. That wall is the subconscious mind. It holds every belief, memory, emotional pattern, and identity you have ever accepted as true. And it is running the show far more than you realize. The 98% live from subconscious programming they never chose. Beliefs like money is hard to make, success requires sacrifice, people like me don't get ahead, I'm not ready yet, or it's safer not to try. These beliefs don't shout, they whisper. They show up as hesitation, as delay, as overthinking, and because they feel familiar, they feel true. The 2% learn to challenge these invisible rules. They understand that beliefs are not facts, they are habits of thought, and habits can be changed. I once met a woman who dreamed of starting her own business. She had the skills, the passion, the opportunity. But every time she took a step forward, something pulled her back. She would suddenly feel tired, distracted, overwhelmed. When we explored deeper, she realized she had grown up hearing that business owners were greedy and irresponsible. Her conscious mind wanted success, but her subconscious mind associated it with danger. No amount of positive thinking could override that conflict. This is why willpower alone doesn't work. Willpower is conscious. Patterns are subconscious. The 2% work where the real power is. They reprogram the emotional associations tied to success, money, leadership, and self-worth. They do this through repetition, emotion, and environment. Repetition because the brain changes through practice, not intention. Emotion because emotionally charged experiences create stronger neural connections. And environment because what you repeatedly see, hear, and engage with shapes your identity. The 98% stay in environments that reinforce who they've always been. Same conversations, same complaints, same limitations disguised as realism. The 2% intentionally design their environment. They choose mentors, books, content, and communities that stretch their thinking. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's necessary. There is also a fear that almost no one talks about, yet it silently controls millions of lives. The fear of success, not failure, success. Because success changes expectations. It changes how people see you. It changes who you have to become. And for many, that feels more threatening than staying stuck. The 2% face this fear honestly. They ask themselves hard questions. Am I willing to be misunderstood? Am I willing to disappoint people who benefit from me staying the same? Am I willing to carry greater responsibility? These questions require courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Another powerful distinction is how they use their past. Most people use the past as a prison. They say, this is who I've always been, this is how things have always gone. The 2% use the past as information, not identity. They extract lessons, release emotional charge, and then consciously choose who they are becoming. This is where emotional healing becomes part of success. You cannot build a new future while constantly reliving old pain. The 2% learn to feel emotions fully, process them, and let them pass. They don't suppress, they don't numb, they integrate. And in doing so, they free massive amounts of energy that was once trapped in survival mode. Think about how much energy is wasted on worry, resentment, regret, and self-judgment. Now imagine redirecting that energy into creativity, focus, and purposeful action. This is what happens when the subconscious mind begins to work with you instead of against you. There is a moment in every transformation where you realize something profound. You realize that you are not broken, you are programmed. And what was programmed can be rewritten. This realization brings both relief and responsibility. Relief because there is nothing wrong with you. Responsibility because change is now in your hands. The 2% embrace this responsibility. The 98% avoid it. As you listen to this, your brain is already changing. New connections are forming. New possibilities are being considered. This is not motivation. This is awareness expanding. And awareness, when followed by action, becomes transformation. In the next part, we are going to bring everything together. We'll talk about how the 2% live day to day, how they make decisions under pressure, and how you can begin stepping into that identity in practical, real-world ways. Here we are at the final part before the conclusion. This is where the abstract becomes real, and the principles of the 2% become something you can live and breathe every day. The 2% don't rely on luck, timing, or sudden breakthroughs. They rely on systems, routines, and deliberate focus. Their mornings are intentional. Their habits are aligned with the person they are becoming. Every small decision is a vote for the identity they want to embody. Odie. This is why success becomes inevitable for them. Not because life is easier, but because their inner world consistently drives the outer world. They also embrace discomfort as a friend, not an enemy. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They postpone decisions, delay action, and settle for mediocrity just to feel safe. The 2% understand that every significant step towards success will feel uncomfortable at first. Fear, uncertainty, and resistance are signals that you are stretching, growing, and evolving. They don't wait for the discomfort to vanish. They move through it anyway. Another secret lies in their relationships. The 98% surround themselves with mirrors, people who reflect their current reality, their fears, their doubts. The 2% surround themselves with windows, people who show them what is possible, challenge their thinking, and elevate their energy. Mentors, coaches, communities, even the books they read and the content they consume are intentionally chosen. They understand that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and they refuse to leave it to chance. Consistency is another invisible force that separates the 2%. Success isn't a single heroic effort, it is 1,000 small, deliberate actions compounded over time. They show up day after day, even when motivation fades, even when results seem slow. And over months and years, those actions create momentum that feels unstoppable. That is why persistence, patience, and planning are far more powerful than inspiration alone. The 2% also live with clarity. Most people wander through life, confused, reactive, and distracted. They don't know what they want, and they don't know why they want it. The 2% get brutally honest with themselves about their desires. They define a vision, break it into concrete steps, and measure their progress constantly. Clarity becomes a magnet that draws opportunity, action, and energy toward them. And finally, the 2% understand that life is a reflection of their inner world. Thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and identity shape actions, which shape outcomes. They invest in personal growth relentlessly, knowing that the more they evolve internally, the more the external world expands in response. Success is never just about money, recognition, or status. It's about mastering themselves and their mindset first. Right now, as you hear this, you may feel a mix of excitement and discomfort. That is the signal that transformation is possible. That is the doorway. The 98% avoid it. 2% step through it. And stepping through it is the first choice you can make today, right now, with the power of awareness guiding your actions. Every great achievement in history, every breakthrough you admire, every life that inspires you, it started with someone choosing to see the pattern, break the pattern, and take consistent action anyway. That is what separates the 2% from the 98%. Not luck, not intelligence, not talent, pure choice and relentless alignment between internal identity and external action. Now the path forward is in your hands. What habits will you start? What fears will you face? What identity will you commit to embodying today, not tomorrow? The 2% start here. The 98% wait, respected. Understand this truth. Because it is simple, yet profound, the gap between the 2% and the 98% is not luck. It is not circumstance. It is not even opportunity. It is the unseen choices you make every single day. Choices of thought, of action, of courage, and of identity. The 98% wait for the perfect conditions, for the right moment, for motivation to arrive. They let fear whisper the rules, let habits run unchecked, and let life happen to them. And so, they live a life of almost achieving, almost succeeding, almost stepping into their potential. They carry dreams that never awaken and regret that quietly grows. 2%, however, create conditions. They decide first, then act. They understand fear will never vanish and discomfort is a constant companion. But they move forward anyway. They see every challenge as a lesson, every failure as feedback, every setback as a setup for something greater. They do not wait for permission from the world, they grant it to themselves. So here is what I want you to feel deep in your bones. The 2% is not some distant club. It is not reserved for the chosen few. It is available to you right here, right now, if you are willing to do the work most won't. If you are willing to face your fears, rewrite your internal programming, focus relentlessly, and take consistent action aligned with the person you are becoming. Today, you have a choice. You can step into awareness, take responsibility for your life, and begin building the mindset, habits, and identity of the 2%, or you can return to comfort, convenience, and the familiar. But know this, comfort is an illusion. The life you dream of will not arrive by staying the same. It will arrive by becoming someone new, someone capable, someone unstoppable. The question is not if you can succeed. The question is, are you willing to see, decide, and act in alignment with your highest potential, even when it is uncomfortable? Because that decision, made consistently, courageously, and intentionally, is what separates the 2% from the 98%. Your journey begins the moment you choose. Step forward, align your mind, master your emotions, take relentless action, and know that every day you commit, every thought you direct, every fear you move through, you are building the life that 98% will only dream about. The 2% don't wait, neither should you.